Welcome to the Your City podcast, where we get to know our neighbors so we can be good neighbors. I'm your host, Aaron Williams, and before we get started, we're going to say a thank you to today's episode sponsor, Sweet Tings Cakes and Cookies. Sweet Tings is a Gardendale-based certified home baker who specializes in decorating cakes and cookies for all occasions. She's super passionate about creating beautiful memories for her clients through her homemade sweets and has years of professional experience. Whether it's for a birthday party, wedding, baby shower, anniversary, or any holiday celebration, you can reach out to Sweet Tings for some delicious and professional-looking desserts that will be sure to please the crowd. You can find her on Facebook at Sweet Tings Cakes and Cookies, or give her a call at 205-223-4861. Today, I'm joined by Sue Jeffries and Patrice Brooks, who are both co-founders of the nonprofit organization Just Keep Smiling, which helps families with hospitalized children in need. We're going to talk about Just Keep Smiling, how it is involved in the community, and what inspired them to take on this type of mission. Sue, Patrice, thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm excited to talk to you about some of these, probably life-changing stories that we're going to go over. I wanted to just open up talking about Just Keep Smiling. What is Just Keep Smiling?
Well, Just Keep Smiling is a foundation that was founded on Christian principles of serving God. It was the founders' desire to be a light in people's life when it's very dark, their children were sick. We are help with children who are critically ill or chronically ill. The idea was that we wanted to go in and tell them how much God loves them, but felt like at that time, if they're losing their house, their power's been cut off, it's hard to say that. But if we pay their bills and we keep them stress-free where they can stay by their child's bedside, then it would show the love of God.
So just an opportunity to allow parents to spend more time
Right.
with their kids.
Stress-free time,
Yeah.
yes.
And it sounds like the inspiration for that was a little bit, like that song, This Little Light of Mine. It's just like you guys are just going to let the light shine and y'all are going to just sort of be that light.
Well, that's what we try to do. I mean, when you're in that hospital setting, and the three of us have been there with our children, Sue's story is a little different than Deb's and mine. Both Deb and I have chronically ill children, so that they lived for many years with their illness. Sue lost her children and her husband suddenly in an accident. So when we came up with the model for how we were going to do this, we really used Deb as our model because she actually lived the life in the hospital with her child.
Yeah.
Not knowing if she could pay her bills, losing her job, things like that, eating off her child's plate. And so we wanted to do something to alleviate that or help alleviate that stress. And if you do that for someone, then they have ears to hear that God loves them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're practicing the love. You're not just speaking it, you're practicing it.
We're trying to be the hands and feet of God.
Yeah.
It's a tangible thing.
I think that's great. About how many families do y'all interact with during a year?
That's really something I'd have to really look back and look at. But we average probably 3 to 5 or 6 requests a week. But
Oh man, I was not ready for that pace.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a lot.
But I mean, this has come after years,
Right.
Because we've
Yeah.
actually been going for 17 years. I'm sorry. So we've built it up. But I mean, we may go a week without any request. Hardly ever that happens now. But then, and we might be flooded with requests. But other ways we've till COVID happened. Everything's based on before COVID.
Yeah.
But before COVID, we were able to get into the hospitals easier. And so when you talk about how many families we interact with, we provide gas cards for many families that we don't even know about. We just give gas cards to the social workers and
okay.
they hand them out. There was a time when we served meals at the hospitals and kind of got to interact with the families and provided them a safe zone that they could come and talk about their children and what's going on in their lives.
So how do you guys connect with all of these different families? How do y'all get the message out? How do families know to reach out to you?
Well, we work totally with social workers. We decided that when we started, the first thing that was the most important to us, that we wanted to be good stewards of people's money. We never wanted to have any impropriety, that we were making decisions based on somebody we knew or somebody that, a friend or whatever. So,
You didn't want it to look like there's any type of favoritism
right,
or
Correct.
right.
any sort of like even the ounce of corruption.
Right.
So we didn't have the resources at that time, especially to look into people's finances and whether they really are in need. So we started relationships with the social workers, primarily at Children's Hospital. At that time, it was also UAB because they had children's, the heart floor of the children's then. But the social workers know the families, they know their financial needs, they know if what kind of situation they're in. So they actually fill out a request form, and we try to keep it very simple so it's not grueling for the social worker to have to fill out, telling us where the hospitalization and the needs of the family. And then we go through, we look at them if they meet our criteria of our mission statement, and then we pay their bills.
That's, I think that's an interesting way to approach it. You started out with how do you find them? And so your method of finding them was like, we'll go to the people who already know where they're at.
That's right.
And that, this idea that you're like, well, we need to avoid making sure that we need to make sure that we're avoiding raising this money for just our friends
Right.
and stuff like that. I think that's a good way to approach it. I don't know if I would have thought of that.
Well, another thing about it is that, we've been blessed in that we've never had to tell anyone no because they didn't
Because of lack of funds.
Because of lack of funds. It would be because they didn't fit into the criterion. They didn't fall into our mission statement. But the ones that know that and know the family the most is those social workers are in there every day with those families. And when we do pay the bills, we don't pay the family the funds. The funds go to Alabama Power, or the funds go to the mortgage company or the car company or whatever. So that way we know that the money that we are spending that's been given to us in good faith and trust is going directly to that need.
Yeah, exactly. You're making sure that it's ending up at the destination where
Right.
it's supposed to go.
Right.
Wow. So let me ask you, you guys have been going 17 years on this.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you? I know you mentioned a little bit like Deb, the other co-founder who's not here, she had a sick child. Patrice, you said you also had a sick child.
I did.
What inspired y'all? What exactly spoke to you about, I need to start a charity? This is what I need to take action in this direction. What spoke to y'all with that?
Well, originally, I knew when I lost my husband and both my children, that was my entire family, and questioned why I was here, why God left me and didn't take me with him. So it was a question that I had to deal with for several years. But finally, as I started healing, I knew that God could give me a purpose. Never make it okay that the accident happened, but we could turn it into something that was good.
Yeah.
And actually leave a legend of our children. So I knew it had to have to do with children, and I knew that I wanted to help parents. So actually, we just began a conversation of starting of what it would look like, what we could do, and how we could go about doing it. And Patrice, I think, had a really cool story about her uncle.
Mm-hmm.
We knew the name was Just Keep Smiling because we knew that no matter what you're going through, no matter how hard life is, you just have to keep smiling and going forward. And the people who've lost children can really relate to that. But Patrice, you want to share that story?
Well, from the time Trey was sick, we
Trey's your son?
Trey's our son, yes. And when we found out he was sick at the age of 8, we knew that if this was the path that God had us on, that there was also purpose in it. And so I began to pray, and my friends that surrounded me and our family, we prayed for God to give us purpose in that pain, that it wasn't just to watch him suffer. There was a reason for it, just like he sent his son to die on the cross for us. There was purpose in the pain. And so as we began to pray, they it took years, but God knew when that time was right. But I had actually it was really interesting. I'd been praying about that, and I'd gone to Florida where my family was. I have an uncle that I was very, very close to. And he took me to the airport one day. And as I got out, we talked all the way there. As I got out of the car, he hugged me. He said, "Sweetheart," he said, "there's just one thing I'm going to ask for you to do." And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You just keep smiling and everything's going to be okay." He said, "You just keep sharing that love." Well, it just kind of burned in my spirit. When I got home that night after the flight, my husband said, "Hey, Sue Jeffries and Deb Cook came to see me today. They're interested in starting a nonprofit, and she wants you to give her a call." So I gave her a call, and we were talking about all the different things about what she was thinking about. And it was, I was thinking, oh, this is really falling into line with what I said, well, do you have a name for it yet? Or have y'all thought of that? She goes, "Well, actually we do. The name is Just Keep Smiling."
Oh,
And I was like, okay, I know. I said, there's no further,
yeah.
this is the plan God has for
The
me.
puzzle pieces aligned.
Yes, they just fell into place. So, anyway, so we began to work together as a team, and try to find. At that time, I was still teaching school. So Sue, bless her heart, she and Deb did a lot of the behind the scenes. Deb was
They're
working
still
too.
working too.
So she and Jeannie did a lot of the getting started things, because I was still teaching and would help on the afternoons and the evenings and the weekends.
Gotcha.
Actually, we started at Hurricane Katrina. The first child that we helped came to Birmingham from New Orleans. They had sent him, he was in the hospital in New Orleans waiting a liver transplant. And when they knew the hurricane was coming in, they evacuated the hospital. This little family with 3 children and the baby that needed a liver transplant was in a van, and they drove from city to city till they found a children's hospital, and they landed in Birmingham. And we had just talked to them about what we wanted to do.
How stressful to be that family.
I know. Can you imagine?
Just Keep Smiling was able to take them. We had no money. We had nothing, but we had a lot of faith.
You had faith, and you had hope, and you had goodwill.
That's right. So we took that little family. We found them a home to live in. The churches helped us furnish the home. We got the dad a job, and the children enrolled in school. And that because of that, another child in that particular school had told his teacher he wanted to start saving money for the hurricane victims. Well, they had saved up this jar. The kids kept putting their money in. One day the teacher said, "We probably really need to count this money and see how much it is." Well, they were shocked. It was $1,200, which was a lot for these little guys.
Yeah.
And they called us and gave it to us because the children were in school that they knew. And so we went and the little boy was able to present us with the money.
And that was y'all's first donation?
That was our first donation.
That's our first.
That's such a special story.
Uh-huh.
Wow. How does somebody, for aspiring charity organizers out there, how does somebody create a nonprofit? What does that process even look like?
Well, the first thing we would say, it's not easy.
Right.
But I started thinking about that because someone had asked me that question. And it's like most foundations like ours are started because of an experience in somebody's life. Whether they've had a child or a husband or something's happened to them, and they feel this real calling to start a foundation. So first you have to have a great idea. You have to have a team of people that surround you, that believe in you.
It's not something that like one person could do.
Not what we're doing. One person could not do what we've done.
Sure.
I'm sure there's smaller situations or lesser situations that they could, but you need a team of people who believe not only in you, but they believe in your idea and they believe in what you're doing. You need a board of people that are strong, and it's very helpful to have a board that buys into what you're doing also.
Yeah. But
one of the most important things that I think Patrice will agree, we all agree, that the number one thing for us was that God was in it with us.
That's right.
And we never take credit. We're three mamas who had not a clue what we were doing. All we knew is that we wanted to help people
Yeah.
that were sick, that had sick children. And God has blessed us continually since the day we started. He has blessed us financially. He's blessed us with people. And I'm just,
Well, and the thing is, I think too, when you think of community, Gardendale uh, has surrounded us with support. Sue came, and many people knew Sue's story, and she settled and made her roots here with her new family. So they knew her story. And then our son Trey went through the school system.
Okay.
And so a lot of people knew Trey.
Mhm.
And so they knew the heart of the mission, and the same with Billy, Jeremy, and Deb, her family. And so they knew what we were trying to accomplish, and they have been, Gardendale has been an excellent support of us.
yeah, I told Patrice when we were talking about that the other day, and I said, Gardendale, the community of Gardendale is really the heart of this
It
organization.
really is.
In the beginning, because they actually, they loaded our car and they got us on the road to where we were going.
Mhm.
Now, of course, we're out in a lot of other places. But in the beginning,
Right.
if it hasn't been for a community who embraced us and loved us and agreed to help us and do whatever we needed to do, a city who was willing to let us use the city to have functions,
Yeah.
a church that was allowed us to use functions, we would have never made it.
Mm-mm.
Oh, well, that's really nice. I gotta say, I really appreciate the amount of gratitude that y'all are showing for this type of stuff. Because, like, being thankful for things, it's not just, oh, I'm thankful, and that's good for other people. Being thankful can really, it just helps everything. I feel like just run smoother. It humbles you. It allows you to operate with that appropriate amount of humility. So I think that's really great.
Well, we know that we couldn't have done it without the support of our families and our city. I mean, our mayor has just supported us 100%, and and just the community itself, and a lot is because they know our situations. They've lived it with us. It's been real to them. They've
Mhm.
watched it. And so then to be able to be a part of that legacy continuing, I think is important to them as a community also.
Yeah. What you mentioned that you do a little bit of outreach outside of Gardendale. What types of outreach are you doing throughout I guess, the state of Alabama, maybe even beyond the state of
As
Alabama?
far as fundraising, is that what you're talking about? Or as far as helping children?
How far does Just Keep Smiling reach?
Well, basically, we are in the state of Alabama.
Okay.
We haven't felt like that we were large enough to venture out yet. And it would take more staffing to do that. But honestly, if a child is very sick or has been in a bad accident, they're going to Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
So we have where most of your really sick children, where they are.
My niece, she was born, and when she was born, she was in the NICU. And I didn't know this, that the Children's Hospital in Birmingham was like one of the best,
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
South,
Yes,
in the
yes.
entire Southeast. There were other families like from Georgia or different states
Right.
that were there in Birmingham because nowhere else had the facility to take care of their kid like that. So I didn't know that.
And the fact is, if they are from another state, if they're in Children's Hospital, we'll help them.
That's right. It
So
doesn't
that's
matter
the-
where they're from.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember a family that came through. They were from Georgia, and she went into labor early here and had some issues. Remember the military
Yes,
family,
yeah.
and they were here quite a while, and so we were able to support them and help them. When we have families from all over that they bring here because of the specialties of things we have, especially in the heart department.
Gotcha. So you've talked about how you're very involved in Gardendale, and Gardendale has been very, giving to y'all. But y'all are also putting on events, annual events inside of Gardendale. What types of events do you do for Gardendale, and how do they help Just Keep Smiling?
Well, we have the Merry Market, which we've just finished up, and that is at the Civic Center, and it is a mini Christmas village. And so that's the Civic Center is so gracious to have us, and we come in and we take over from like Thursday through Saturday, and
Just
bless
occupy
them.
the space.
We do. I mean, all the things. And so they're wonderful to help us with that. Not only Park and Rec is in on it, and the mayor always comes and starts us off with a prayer. And so that's a beautiful thing. And it really does. One of the things I love to hear, the vendors come from all over. We have some that come from out of state to be a part of it. Karen White's our chairperson for that. She does an excellent job. And but these vendors, they always, what makes my heart so happy is they learn the mission of what we're doing, but they always leave and they say, "This is the nicest group of people in Gardendale. We love coming to this show." And it's because they are so well loved on and taken care of. And so that's one event. And that's really a community event because we get to see people that we don't ordinarily get to see. Then we have our Live with the Characters show, which is done at Gardendale First Baptist Church. That's mostly for children.
Hmm.
And you can bring your children there. We put on a 45-minute show. And then afterwards, they get to get the characters' autographs.
What is this show? Is it
It's
like
a
a stage
song
play?
and dance, and they sing, and the children can sing and dance with it.
Okay.
We have two local music teachers that are sisters that teach in our school that they write the music and put it all together. We have girls that do all the choreography, and then we have two people that always do our narration. But that takes 200 volunteers.
That's a big show.
That's a big show. It's a
Yeah.
big show. It's very time consuming.
What type of attendance do y'all get from that?
About 1,500.
Wow. So
But we do two shows. Gardendale First Baptist Church allows us to use the venue, and so it's quite large.
yeah.
We usually do two shows on Saturday, and we'll average around anywhere from 12 to 1,500 people. Now, we haven't been able to have it because of COVID.
Aw.
Of course. I mean,
Yeah. So we've had to step back from that one. The other one we have that was just the end of September is our auction, and it's a live auction and a silent auction. We do it at Regents Field in Birmingham. It's a
Okay.
beautiful venue. And we have great attendance to that. And we have sponsors that sponsor the tables and bring their guests. And then they get to have dinner and bid on the auction items. And it's fun. Brian Knox, who's a local realtor, is also an auctioneer,
Hmm.
and he does our auction for us. And it's fun because
Does he do the voice?
he's
he's crazy.
incredible. Yeah, I mean, he is just incredible with that. And he's so entertaining that even if you didn't bid on anything, that's probably our largest fundraiser that we have. And we have people from, like I say, sponsors like that will purchase the whole table and bring their, employees and friends and things like that to that. It's a very entertaining kind of dress up event that we have. And then the last one that we have is a golf tournament.
Okay.
And we have that across town and
in Greystone.
in Greystone.
Okay. Very cool.
So we've got two that are actually out, and then two that are
In Gardendale.
in Gardendale.
I went to the Merry Market this year, and that was really awesome to see all of these vendors. You know, it's not like, oh yeah, Home Depot and Lowe's out there. It's like local people who are making things, crafts and things like that, and
Right.
selling them directly to people. I really thought that was great because you're buying directly from the community. You know,
Exactly.
that was a really cool.
A sweet
Yes.
story from that was last year we did Merry Market. So COVID was still kind of a thing. And we got together and we decided that people had the choice whether they wanted to come or not. And you can mask, we had masks and things like that to give them. But our vendors, many of the sweet stories, they had not been able to work. And I did not realize, there's always the story behind the story. Yes, we're doing a fundraiser, but there's always another story there that we don't foresee coming. Someone that we're able to connect or find out that they too. So Mary Market has had some special things in that we always have people at the doors, and a lot of our moms in our community that have lost children have been able to sit and they help take up the money, but then they also get to talk to each other about their children and their loss. So that is one part of Mary Market that was established that we did not see coming.
Yeah.
And then this past year with COVID, several of the vendors came to us, tears in their eyes, and said, "Thank you so much, because I haven't been able to sell my things and I was late on a payment. And today I was able to make up enough to make my car payment." And they were so grateful
Yeah.
for the event. And so there's always, and God does that. You're working in this one area, and then suddenly you find out that the whole time God had another plan to come in there and do it. And so that's always been true of all of our events. We've been able to make connections, really
Yeah.
neat
I
connections.
think that's really awesome that you didn't expect that all of these, moms that have had a similar tragedy in their
Right.
lives come together, and you're kind of like forming a help,
A community.
yeah, a little network, a little community between them and stuff like that, a little support network.
That's right. And it's a club that, and we've talked about this, it does kind of become like not, I guess, a club or a community or what you want to say. It's one that you don't want to be a part of.
Oh.
You don't want that for anybody.
Hmm.
But if you're in it, there is so much healing in that community. And to be able to look at someone and say, "Me too,"
Yeah.
is just, for me, Sue was my me too. When Trey was, we found out, and they said that he probably would not make it out of high school with this disease. I just kept thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to raise my daughters and take care of a sick child
Yeah.
and work a full-time job and all the things that came with it? God, how am I going to be able to do it? Well, I knew of Sue's story, and I told her one time, I said, like, "You're the closest thing to Job I knew in the Bible. I mean, you lost everything that in one day, and you continued to find a life. God prevent." So when I would get down, I would think of Sue, and I would say, "Okay, if Sue is still standing today,
Mm-hmm.
I can do this, God. There's a way that you're going to help us to do this." So that community is so vital, to be able to look at someone and say, "Me too." That's what we miss about being able to go into the hospital as much as we used to, because we could actually look at that parent and
Yeah.
say,
Share our story.
share our stories.
Directly connect with them,
Right.
empathize with them in a way that feels, just honest and real.
And not just in the form of finance, but in the
Yeah.
form of saying, "Look, right now you don't think you can get through this. You don't know how you're going to get through it. But I can tell you that there's a God, and he's real, and he will walk you through this if you will let him." And that we really, that's one part of that COVID has just robbed us of. But we hope that we still get the opportunity, because we always, when we they give them our brochure and our stories, and then we have a little card that goes with it, so they know that it's not just from three ladies, it is from people that have walked the same journey.
That's really awesome. But I'm sure it hasn't always been smooth sailing. There certainly have been challenges over the years in running this organization. What are some of the biggest challenges that Just Keep Smiling has had to face?
We laughed. We talked about this the other day. The three of us we're three different people. And, I think that when you're meshing three different people and three different backgrounds, learning how to do this was like stressful, because, you know, we didn't know what we were doing, and when opportunities would come up. So, but it's been so exciting to watch us each kind of fall into our area.
Yeah, it's like when you're starting, there's this level of dependency on each other, but nobody knows how to do their responsibilities yet. So it's,
And then
an
it
opportunity for
merged.
frustration.
Our strengths began to come out, and we all kind of took our areas, and that's been a beautiful thing. As long as we stay in our lane, we're good.
But if anybody was starting a foundation, one of the things that was said to me was patience. You
Yeah.
can't start a foundation and expect to be successful the first months, year, maybe 2, 3 years. First of all, you have to establish a credibility.
Yeah.
We had to
Gotta build
establish,
trust.
Right.
yeah, we had to establish that we were here and we were going to stay. And that was the journey. That was something that we had to overcome, that they could actually trust us, that we were going to do what we said we were going to do. The other thing was we decided early on that we were a Christian organization and that we would not vary from that. We had some people high up at one of the hospitals that would told us if we would take Christ out of it, Jesus out of it, that they would come on board with us and help us to be financially successful. But they felt like leaving it a Christian organization because so many people have gods that it would be offensive to them. And so we had to make a decision that we would trust our God, the big God,
Yeah.
Be God.
that he would take care of us. And so it wasn't really hard, but it was kind of strange to turn our backs on
An
a
opportunity
big
like
financial
that.
Right.
support.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like when something like that happens, you have this fear of missing out, this fear of like, well, what if that was it and it's gone,
Right.
and it never comes
Right.
back?
That's exactly right.
So, it can be a little scary to turn down things like that.
Yes,
But y'all stuck by your principles.
we
Mhm.
did. And the Lord's watched out for us. So we're thankful.
We're
That's
very
good.
thankful.
Yeah.
That's good. Let's talk about some of the stories, some of the people that you've assisted.
Mhm.
Have there been any stories from families that have just stuck with y'all through the years?
Absolutely. Now, first of all, I will say that we don't always, in fact, most of the time, we don't get to meet the families. We know their stories because the social workers tell us what they're going through. But through the years, there have been several families that we've actually gotten to know and were able to do and know what was going on with them. One of the early on stories that we had was a young man that was from Louisiana. He had had heart problems his entire life, and this was UAB was where he had to come
Yeah.
for all of his heart surgeries, treatments, anything he had to do. Well, he also he lived to be, he was about, by the time we met him, they were like 13, 14 years old, maybe right in started high school. He developed cancer.
Hmm.
And so as he declined and he could not leave the hospital, well, the social workers came to the mom and said, you really need to get his dad up here. This is when he does the best, is when dad's here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she said, we have a home and we have a child, another child.
Mm-hmm.
We can't afford to just walk off and leave everything in Louisiana for him to come up here and lose work.
Yeah.
Well, the social workers jumped in and called us. They got him leave time from his employment. We were able to take over his bills, and he came up here and spent the last month of his child's life.
You took away that worry and that concern, and you gave him the freedom.
Well, actually, it just made it where he could come.
Yeah, you gave
Otherwise,
him the freedom.
he would not. Right,
to
he
be
would
able
not
to
have
do
been able
that.
to come. One of the most interesting stories we had, a young woman from Africa.
Okay.
She had come over and had gotten pregnant and had a child, and it had a heart problem. Well, they had to send this baby to Boston. At that time, there was not a doctor in Birmingham that did this specialty procedure. So we didn't know it. But when she left, we paid her rent, her utilities, we paid everything, her car, so that she could go to Boston and know that she had a home to come back to. Well, later when she was talking in one of our videos, she told us that she was one day away from going back to Africa to her family because she didn't have any family here.
Mm-hmm.
She did not know what she was going to do. And when we came along and told her that we would pay her bills, she went ahead and went to Boston. Had she gone back to Africa, the little girl would not have lived. And now she's thriving. She's several years, I mean, she's like 9 or 10 years old.
Oh,
Yeah, so that was really a sweet story that we have. And we had a young family whose child had to go to Boston for this same type procedure. And they called and asked us that if we would pay for the airline flight for mom to get to go. And we gladly did it. Found out before we could get the money to her, she had actually pawned her family car. So they had no transportation. And so we paid for the airline so she was able to get her car so they would have it. And I said something to her, why didn't you wait? We were going to pay. She said, when it comes to your child's life, it doesn't matter. You'll pawn anything you have
yeah.
to get them the help they need.
Everything is secondary.
That's right.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
That's right. And so,
So-
and a lot of times they're afraid they're so caught up in their child, they're not even thinking about that. And the social workers don't find out that they're in trouble until they might walk in and find them crying or
Mm-hmm.
hear a phone conversation when the nurse is in there, and the nurse will let the social worker know, hey, I overheard and they're in some stuff with their finances.
People hide it.
They do actually, because they're also fearful that you have to have when your child leaves the hospital, you have to have a home to take them to. And so if you've lost that while you're there, you could be in trouble with social services.
Mm-hmm.
So they're scared, and they don't see any options for it.
They don't even want to let a whiff of that get out there. Yeah.
So a lot of times we get a call and it's an emergency. Like they're hanging by a thread, like this mom who hawked her car to get there because they don't have any options. So they're doing anything they can.
Well, that's sad that there's this byproduct. It's like we have this law here. Yeah, we want to make sure that children have a home to go to when they're leaving, or else, we want to make sure that children are well taken care of. But the byproduct of this law is that parents who are facing this hardship are scared to talk about their hardships because they don't want the consequence of that. That's really sad.
It is.
We had a little family in Montgomery. They had like 8 children, I think, and they had a new baby, and the baby had several things wrong with him, including a heart condition. So they sent him to Birmingham, and the dad came and left the older children to take care of him. And he was a real estate agent, had not been able to work. It'd been a hard pregnancy and just a lot of reasons. But they called for us to pay their utility bills. And this dad, I cannot tell you how thankful he was, because his children were at home in a house and it was like 30 degrees outside.
Yeah.
And so we were able to get money down quickly to the gas company and get their utilities turned back on. So we do get to hear a lot of the stories, but many times we never know what we've done.
Well, you hear all these stories, and maybe I'm just don't understand a lot about this, but it would seem to me that just being exposed to this much tragedy has got to take a toll on like emotional. How do y'all maintain that? After seeing all of this and stuff like that, how do you maintain it?
Well, I feel like when you see the relief,
Yeah.
and that is the point. I mean, you feel that you have stepped into someone else's pain, and sometimes we do hear stories, and there's triggers. There's that it takes you back to your own pain.
Yeah.
But honestly, you don't really want to ever lose that, because I don't know if I'm saying that right, but you don't want to lose the reason why you're doing the feeling.
You don't want to forget.
You don't want to become numb to it. Someone else's pain.
Yeah.
And so if when you read these stories and you look at these moms and dads, you can look into their eyes and you go there.
You know how scared they are.
You know how scared they are. You know that they're they're just hanging by a thread,
Yeah.
and they don't know what to do. And so it is hard, but then if you can step in and say, there's something we can do for you, and you can show them, just like Sue showed me,
Yeah.
that you can make it through. There is life. There is a way that you will grow from this. It's not easy. I think it puts so much purpose to your own
Yeah.
pain. That's not the only reason you do it. You want to help them, but it does put purpose to a reason why you went through that. So now you can help.
It gives you some meaning, and it gives you, it sounds like, I just thought that being exposed to that amount of tragedy and over again would just wear you down. But it sounds like when you get through it with these people, and you, like you were saying, you get to that relief, you develop a type of strength that's like, no, I can see where this can go, and I know that there's goodness on the other side of this.
Right. And then they sometimes will say things like, you showed me that we could get through this. I was thinking of the story you mentioned earlier, the mom that we were videoing, that she found it helped her, our ability to help her, then gave her the ability to find some normalcy even while her child was sick.
Yeah.
And to know, because that's such a concern. I had 2 other children that were healthy. So I couldn't stop.
How do you be mom and also
Mom to a sick child?
Yeah.
And keep all those things juggling. And so I was thinking about the mom that you were saying, she very much found that because we took that away from her, that sense of.
Oh, you're talking about the mom that's from this local area.
Yes.
Her baby was born with a heart disease, and they required 3 surgeries. We helped the family through the first 2. Not sure she's had the 3rd one yet, but she broke down and cried and told us that us taking on their bills and paying so that they could keep their household going made it where they could be better parents to their children because they weren't so stressed out.
Yeah. So the other kids don't feel as neglected.
Right.
And I don't know, all of this just sounds so difficult to navigate that it must be really helpful to have somebody that's kind of navigated these waters before. It just sounds really, I can't imagine going through that. I don't have kids, but I can't even begin to imagine what it would be like. So
we hope you never do.
No.
I hope that
we don't want you to join the club.
Yeah. But let's talk about some ways that people can get involved with Just Keep Smiling. What are some ways that people who are listening that feel inspired by this? Ways that people could
Well, we have a newsletter
involved.
that we send out quarterly, and a lot of people give donations in memory or in honor of someone, and that's become a really special thing. And so it's a way of remembering those you've lost. And we actually lost the year before Trey passed away. We lost my daughter's baby, 24 days old, passed away. So we have a lot of people. That's a way that I can honor our Bennett by giving in his memory at Christmas, his birthday, and things like that. And so people do that for their children or loved ones that pass away, and then to give in honor of someone on their birthday, someone that's alive. And so that's one way people can help and do help.
How do people sign up for this newsletter?
They can actually let us know through our website, and then at our events and things like that. That's how we've acquired our newsletter. And I believe the last time we sent out close to it was over 1,800 that we sent out quarterly. And
Because we always can use volunteers
yes.
on our events. People to help us with events. We have a lot of volunteers who are very, they come alongside us every year, but we can always use new people.
So you've got some reliables.
We
Yes,
do.
yes,
But we're
we do.
always looking for others. And we would be I guess the word is remiss if we did not mention the fact that Jeannie Busby, who I think you met,
Yeah, I've met Jeannie.
Jeannie goes out and she meets people everywhere she goes. She is probably our biggest cheerleader, and she will talk us up at all
Chamber
the
meeting,
chamber
yeah.
meetings, and then that will segue into her meeting someone else, who then will introduce her to someone else,
Mm-hmm.
and then she will set up meetings for us to go. We sometimes talked at churches. Different churches will ask us to come and tell our story and share that with them, and so that has broadened and helped to brand our name and what we do. And so, but Jeannie has done an excellent job of being our PR person and our fundraiser and coordinating events for us. And so that's a huge way that we do that.
Okay, awesome. So people can just go to the website or connect with you on
Yes.
Facebook to get the newsletter, and they can volunteer on the website as well.
They can email us and then let us know, and then we keep their name and we do it that way. So, and our website is www.justkeepsmiling.org. It's not .com.
Yeah, because
So
y'all are an organization.
that's right.
Yeah, I do a lot of computer stuff, so I know all about like what the different domain names and stuff mean. So, anyways, well, you guys have mentioned a little bit of stuff that y'all love about Gardendale, but I'm gonna give y'all an opportunity to elaborate on that. What is something that y'all love about Gardendale?
I love the community feel. I'm from Florida.
Yeah.
And I've lived here since I married my husband 40 years now.
Okay.
And
He was from Gardendale.
He's an original Gardendale. His father actually helped to develop Gardendale.
Gardendalean.
Yes, he is. He is a Gardendalean. And so of course, we've loved raising our children here. And my kids would always laugh and say that they couldn't do anything on Saturday night that we didn't know by Sunday morning. So it's a beautiful thing about living in a small town.
Yeah.
And it's been a great joy to raise our family here,
That's great.
and the support that we've had with our joys and our tragedies. They are this city. No, I cannot say enough about how they have shown up for us and our family. And that's not just our family. It's any family that you meet. If people in Gardendale know you're hurting, they're there for you.
There's a lot of love.
There is a whole lot of love in this community.
I moved into Gardendale, probably 24 years ago, I guess. But one of the things that comes to my mind when you want to know, I mean, not only have they helped us with Just Keep Smiling, that's a byproduct of everyday life, but it's, for me, it's been a place of safety and comfort. I told somebody one time, if I'm across town and get caught in a terrible storm and I'm driving home, it's like when I hit Fieldstown Road, it's like a sigh of relief that I'm in my comfort zone. I'm in an area, and it's just that I think that's something that Gardendale projects. It's that it is a place of safety and comfort. So it's been fun.
Nice. Well, what are some things that you think Gardendale could improve on? Maybe some more restaurants. What are some things that Gardendale could improve on?
The first thing that comes to my mind, I've always wanted a Baskin Robbins. If they would just get a Baskin Robbins,
Some ice cream.
I think it would improve the city greatly.
Okay.
But on the truthful side, it's hard for me to think of anything very critical about our city. So it's I think it's growing in the right direction, and our leadership, and so we just love it. So,
We do. And, I'm very excited. I've already downloaded my Tzatziki's app.
Okay.
So, we're getting a tzatziki.
right.
So I usually have to once a week drive across town and pick up tzatziki. So I can just do it on the app and pick it up down the street. So,
All right.
but if you put it on Facebook now, Stan Hogan would say that the top thing they want is an Olive Garden. So I know that's always been the joke. Everybody always puts Olive Garden, but we are very, very
Give me them
blessed.
breadsticks.
Yes, we're growing. Gardendale is growing. I love the new things that they're doing about the ball fields that are coming in. That's been a real going
Yeah.
to be a really neat thing for our community, and we've got great churches, and so I really don't have negative. I taught
That's
here
perfectly fine.
for 28 years,
Yeah.
and like I said, I was always been proud to be a Gardendale teacher. Yeah, it's hard. It would be hard for me to say something bad.
That's perfectly fine. If you can't think of anything, that's great. I talked to Mayor Hoagland recently, and he was telling me about they're doing some type of development closer to the interstate. So who knows? Maybe that Olive Garden's coming.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that you guys would like to close out with before we end our session today?
I guess not other than just to thank you
Yes.
for helping to us to make people aware of who we are and what we're doing. Anybody that hears this and knows of a family or would like to be involved with us, then we would love to hear from them.
Okay, absolutely. Well, I'm just trying to help people, explore and discover more of the cities that they live in.
Mhm.
So,
I think it's great.
well, thank you. Thank you for listening to the Your City podcast, and I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Sue Jeffries and Patrice Brooks. If you enjoyed the show, you can help us out by following the Your City podcast on Facebook to stay up to date with us, and you can find our episodes on Spotify, YouTube, Odyssey, or your preferred podcasting app. Feel encouraged to leave us a review so that we know how you liked the show and so that more people will be able to discover it. Thank you again for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.